Many years ago, I was at a conference and this guy said something that I never forgot. This had to be like about maybe over 30 years ago. And he said something very simple but powerful. He said, if you do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always gotten. I'm going to say that again. If you do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always gotten. In other words, if you want a new outcome, if you want different results, you have to do something different. If you do the same thing over and over and over again and you expect to have different results, then they call that insanity. And so that I want to talk about doing something different when it comes to relationships because right now, you know this already, there are thousands of people on the internet and YouTube, social media, and they're all giving relationship advice. And you get relationship advice from men. Some men are married, some men are single. You have women giving advice. Some women are single, some are married. And if you want to be in a relationship and you're trying to listen to all these different people because there's so many different perspectives, you can literally get dizzy. It's possible to literally go insane trying to figure out what to do because you want to be in a relationship so desperately. What I'm going to present is something that I don't think is talked about enough. It's about being single without being bitter. It's about being single with a purpose. And I'm doing this, what inspired me to do this, there's a particular YouTuber that I tune into from time to time. And he recently posted a video of a young lady crying. She was distraught. She was clearly in a lot of emotional pain. She shares a story that she dated a guy who cheated on her. And she also shared that when she met this guy, he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a job. He didn't have any money. He had nothing. They moved in together. And she had cameras in her house. This is according to her story. She had cameras in her house. He would turn off the cameras. He would bring women over and he would have sex with these women. I think she gave a number, 15, at least 15 different women. She also mentioned that she had an STD. She contracted an STD from this man. I don't know if it was curable. I pray to God that it was. But when I saw this young woman's anguish, my heart went out to her. And so many women deal with this every single day. What I want to try to do is to present something different to stop you from having to go through that because there's a way you never have to go through that again in your life. And I want to share that with you. Another inspiration for this particular episode was I was on YouTube and, because I myself talk about relationships and a lot of different things, I try to listen to rather, some people who claim to be relationship life coaches in general. And I am a certified life coach myself. So I listened to this one particular guy and I realized, and I don't know if I'm going to do an episode on him because generally I don't like to talk about a person, even though I may mention a person, I use the person and what they say as a springboard. I don't want it to be about this person. What I want it to be about what he's teaching women. And it's a very dangerous teaching because he is married and he will often talk about the so called red pill men. And he presents himself as this righteous man who is married. He's been married for a long time. And at the same time, he's giving relationship advice. He's always selling something. And what I realize is that, and I could see how a woman listening to him could go absolutely bonkers because he'll say, you have to do this and you can't do that. And then most women that he's talking about, to what he's telling women to do or not do, most women could not do it. So, and while listening to someone who seems to have a successful, healthy marriage, on the surface, that may seem like an ideal thing to do. But the danger is in that is you're constantly seeing something that someone else has, but then you don't have it. And then no matter how long you listen to this person, you still don't ever get it. So the person keeps showing you this, or you keep watching this with hope. And there's nothing wrong with hope. But you got to understand that hope is not just a solution. Hope can be a feeling, but it's not is what's going to solve your problem or end whatever frustration you have. So can you imagine? It's like the carrot and the stick. You got this good marriage, somebody else's good marriage in front of you because they're always talking about their marriage. They're always talking about what they got. They're always talking about where they're going, and they present this beautiful family life. And it may be true. I'm not denying. I mean, I'm not questioning whether or not the man is telling the truth. But then you don't have that. So you're constantly seeing something that you don't have. And then after years of listening to this person, and he has a very big platform, the question is how many people listening to him end up really being in the ideal place that they want to be or they think they want to be? How many people? I'm going to say 2%, because a lot of people who are listening to these men give relationship advice, they're not getting any closer to getting married. Wanting something and not getting it creates frustration. It creates disappointment. Then it also, for some people, it creates desperation. They're so desperate to be in a relationship because they think being in a relationship, their life is some kind of way going to be better. They're in a relationship because they've internalized this lie that some kind of way their life is missing something because they're not in a relationship. So I'm going to deal with this. And I have to give a warning, this podcast is not for everybody. This podcast is for women who, and mainly I'm targeting young women, but any age, of course, could listen, middle age or older. This is for women who want to stop going through what that young lady went through on that video. Because there are hundreds of videos like that where women go to the internet, they're crying, they're talking about how a man lied to them, cheated on them, mistreated them, abused them. And the reason why they are so devastated because they would not do those things to the man. They couldn't even conceive doing them. And what they feel is that if they give their heart, their mind, their body, their everything, they believe that because they're being good to the man, that man will reciprocate it to them. And then you got men and the red pill men, and they find all the reasons why that woman is manless, why she doesn't have a man. Then you have the people, which is this person I was just talking about. They say they don't take the red pill, but they do. They take a dose. They have the red pill mentality too, because they're teaching women things that simply are not going to work. Now, they may have worked 50 years ago for some people. They may have worked 20 years ago for some people, but they're not going to work today. And so I want to share some things with women who want to be free. Your tears, your body, your anguish, your pain, the feeling of betrayal, all of those negative things, it can end today. And you have to first open your mind and you have to ask yourself, what have I done to get to this place? And whatever you've done to get where you are with that pain, you got to stop doing. There was a mindset that went with that because the young lady in the video that I mentioned earlier, she shared, that the guy didn't have a job. The guy didn't have good credit, some kind of way. She used her credentials. She emphasized that she used her credentials to get them where they needed to be. And like I said, she looked like she was in her mid to maybe even early 20s, beautiful young lady. I can understand how naivete would make you think that I'm going to help this guy because I'm a hard worker. Maybe he'll work hard. Maybe he just needs a hand up. He needs a little support. He needs a helpmate. And then over and over and over again, women do exactly what that young lady did, and they get the same thing. And sometimes, not sometimes, many times, they get worse. They end up being unalived. And I watch this and I grieve, I hurt. And so I'm going to share some things that I think will help you. And they are radical. And what I would like for you to do is to first just say, I'm going to try these things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, because you're not going to lose anything. Your fingers are not going to fall off. Your legs are not going to fall off. You're not going to go blind. I ask that you try these things for 3 months. And then if you don't feel better, then let me know. But I guarantee you, if you do what I'm telling you to do for 3 months, you're going to feel like an entirely different human being. And you're going to be free from so many of these bad teachings. I've said this on this podcast 1,000 times. Bad advice and bad religion, those things have caused so many people to suffer. I am here as a witness that God does not want you to suffer. You're not put on this earth to suffer. God has a purpose for you, and I guarantee you, just mindlessly and needlessly suffering is not a part of it. And so I'm going to share with you how you can end your suffering, and not only just end it for this moment, but permanently. So bear with me. Make sure you're in a very comfortable place and you're relaxed, and make sure that you're open to learn. Now, let me say this. The truth, one of the things is truth does hurt. But your ability to accept truth is the only way you will grow as a person. And again, if you've tried over and over and over again doing something else, if you have been listening to this, and this one particular person, like I said, he is so toxic. And the reason why I won't say his name, because I have tried to listen to him, and this man is a very insecure, immature man. And he's the kind of person, if you deviate from him, he'll start calling names, he'll start going off, and he has justification for that. At the same time, he said he's a man of God, but he is leading a lot of women down the road, and he's playing with them. He's using psychological tricks. And I'm going to tell you something that's going to, and I heard him say something about, it was some relationship that he was talking about, and I was like, oh no, this is so dangerous. It's so um bad for women. So I'm going to talk about it today. As I said before, get comfortable. The title of this episode is From Bitter to Better: Spiritual Lessons About Being Single, Sane, and Safe. Welcome to Bad Thought Therapy. I'm Cherie Hardy. Peace and blessings. The first thing that I want to share is something that I don't think is talked about enough, and that is, you really don't determine your marital status. Being married is not like going and buying a coat. If you needed a coat, you could go to Macy's or you go to Neiman Marcus and you could get the coat you wanted. You could get the material you wanted, the size, the color. You could get that. But if you wanted to be married, it's not like you can make a person marry you. You can't make a person choose to be with you. And you can't, and it doesn't matter what you do or don't do. It doesn't matter how you look or don't look. It doesn't matter what you have or don't have, or what you believe or don't believe, because you could check every single box that people, these so-called relationship coaches, tell you. You could check all the boxes and you could still not be valued. You could still not be treated well, not be treated with respect. It doesn't matter what you do. You don't determine that. And so there has to be, in order for you to have peace and to stop this vicious cycle of, in and out of relationships, giving your body, giving your time, investing your emotions, and then for that relationship to break up, and then you start that vicious cycle all over again. And by the time you're a certain age, you've gone through 30, 40, 50 or more people, and you are so broken at that point. And that can stop, because the first thing you have to understand is that God is the one who determines your marital status. In other words, if it's in your destiny to be married, there is nothing that can stop you from being married. If it is not in your destiny, it will not happen. And in order to have peace, in order to stop risking your life, you have to accept that. You have to surrender to God. You have to say, God, Whatever you have for me is for me. Your will is your will, and I surrender to it. Of course, pray to God and let God know what the desires of your heart are, what the desires you have in your heart. However, real peace comes when you surrender because you know that God loves you. You know that God wants the best for you. God is the best protector that any human being can ever be. So you have to accept the fact that if there's something you need, God is faithful to provide it. If you needed to be in a relationship, you would be in one. If it is not a need, you will not be in one. And if you're not supposed to be in a relationship, maybe it is not forever. Maybe it is seasonal. Maybe it is a season in your life where God wants you to be single. But when you truly know who God is, that He is above all, that He knows all, that He loves you unconditionally, that He wants the best for you, He does not want you to suffer. He wants you to have peace. He wants you to have joy. When you understand that and you really internalize that, you can then have peace about your marital status. The reason why so many women, and it breaks my heart, they're losing their lives, they're losing everything, their minds, their money, just everything. They're losing it all because they believe that they're supposed to be married. Everybody is not supposed to be married. Everybody is not going to get married. And that obsession with marriage causes this disruption of peace. And so when it's not happening the way you think it should happen, or it's not happening in your timing, many people try to make it happen. So they do things like they start going on dating apps. And that's very, very dangerous. And I don't care what anyone tells you that their dating app is safe, that their dating app is better. It is not. And so they start trying to make it happen. And dating is a human construct that God never intended for you to engage in. That's a whole nother podcast. I won't get into that. But I'm telling you, if you stop focusing on trying to find a man or get a man, you will have peace when you focus on the one who made everything, made the stars, made the sun, made the moon, made you, and you align yourself with what He wants for you. You will have peace, and you will be able to wait on God as you wait for Him to move. You have to understand that God He has your best interests at heart. And right now, there are some things that are happening in our world. You see, God is not going to put you in a relationship and then you're going to suffer. You're going to be oppressed. You're not going to be able to fulfill your purpose. Bad religion and bad counsel tells you your whole purpose is for the man. And that's the person who says he doesn't take the red pill. That's what they tell you. And they base that on the misuse of the Bible, the misunderstanding of how to use the Bible. The Bible is not a book that fell out of the sky. The Bible was not written by a spirit. The Bible was written by men. And if you don't know how to critically analyze the stories and use the stories for life lessons and glean the life lessons, you will try to live, or you would try to recreate a culture that had so many issues, and you're trying to transfer the same things that they did, and you're going to get the same results. And what people don't want to talk about is the women of the Bible. Most of them were oppressed. Most of them were not in an elevated position. Most of them did not even have rights over their own body. You had slavery. Does that mean we're supposed to have slavery? You had people wore certain clothes. They had agriculture. Do we do everything they did? So many people are, and I don't even want to get into this, but so many people are teaching from the Bible in the wrong way. The Bible is not a problem. I want to emphasize that. The Bible is a powerful book if you know how to use it. If you know how to use the Bible in the right way, it can be so empowering. It could change your life in so many ways, in countless ways. But that's the problem, because so many women have been told their whole purpose is for the man. And so then what happens is you got women who get married and they're like, well, what about God is also telling me to be a doctor, or God is also telling me to be a nurse or a teacher or a dentist or an accountant or a business owner. And then you got the people that say they don't take the red pill. They're saying, well, you can't be all that because your whole life has to center around this man. That could drive a person to go absolutely insane. So what you have to do is not listen to any of us. Listen to the voice of the Lord. When you get yourself in a quiet place and you settle down and you surrender to God, because God is the one who has all power in his hand. We can't take our next breath without him. And you say, God, I surrender to you and you only. What is your will for my life? Make your presence known. Show me your way. Show me what you want for me. Then you will be able to get answers directly from God. These people will tell you to set up their life, try to set up your life the way their life is set up. And what they really don't know is that their wife is not happy either. Now that's a whole nother podcast. Like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna talk about this dude because very dangerous person right now, very dangerous. But nevertheless, you have to get your answers from God, because how people lived 5, 6, 7,000 years ago is not how God may want you to live today. So you gotta get your directions from God. Being single is not a curse. Being single doesn't mean you're going to not have something that you need. Being single doesn't mean you're missing out on something. Being single doesn't mean that you're going to have less than. Some people will present it that way and they'll make it seem like you're single, and they almost use your single status as like an insult. Like that's why you're single, because you don't have this, you don't look like this, you don't act like this, whatever the case may be. You're single because God wants you to be single for this moment in time. If he didn't want you to be single, you wouldn't be single. Some people know and some people don't that listen to the podcast. I had a business and my business was in a mall. And I met thousands and thousands of people when I had my business. Before I left teaching, before I went into business full time, I was a teacher. I'm still a teacher now. I went back to teaching, and I was sort of isolated as a teacher. You just really talk to other teachers, anybody that's connected to education. When I had my business, I met people from all over the world, all walks of life, rich people, poor people, middle class people, educated people, non-educated people, just all kinds of people. And I saw all kinds of couples. And of course, we don't know what's going on in their homes, but a lot of times you can get an idea based on how people look and how they carry themselves. You can always tell when a person is oppressed or when they're in a bad relationship because it's going to show. And it was just beautiful. I met Muslim people, Hebrew Israelites, different couples, Christian couples, so many different people. And I'm going to tell you right now, the most successful people are not people that are living the life that they lived 6,000 years ago. I have an aunt, and she has been married. She and her husband have been married for 60 years. My aunt had a very high position in the U.S. government. Won't get into that, but she did. Really a blessing to our family. And my aunt's husband, they've been married for 60 years. My aunt, because she kept getting promoted and her positions got higher and higher, she ended up leaving. They lived in Florida, and she ended up leaving Florida and moving to Washington, D.C., where the main, headquarters was. And my uncle, and he's a man's man. This is a Vietnam veteran. This is a real man. This man, at some point, he ended up moving up there with her. They have been happily married. They have a healthy relationship. No, I'm sure their relationship is not perfect. I, haven't seen every dynamic of their relationship, but I can pretty much say, knowing my aunt, because she would not have been in an unhealthy relationship, because she's a very healthy-minded person, she would not be in a relationship with my uncle for 60 years. And my uncle doesn't play, okay, about my aunt. This is my mother, one of my mother's sisters. So I'm telling you what I know, and they don't, and you don't ever hear my uncle talking about he's got to be the head and she's got to be her helpmate and all of this. Yes, she helps her husband. Yes, she cooks for her husband. Yes, she does so much. But that kind of language, you if you believe that's what you got to do to have a healthy marriage, then you get into marriage and you try to do that and you realize, wait a minute, there's a conflict because God is not telling me to do this. That's why you have to stop listening to toxic people. That reminds me of something I want to tell you to stop doing. Now, this is radical. If you have been listening to relationship coaches, life coaches, and nothing in your life in the relationship department has changed, I want you to stop completely for 3 months. Don't listen to male, any male relationship coach for 3 months. The obsession with trying to be in a relationship and not being in one is one of the reasons why people feel so much anguish and they feel the need to try to make it happen because it's not going to happen in that way. Again, if God wants you to be married, you'll be married. And there is no set formula for your relationship. I've met so many different couples, and I remember I worked with a lady and we were talking about marriage, and she was saying, like, my husband and I, they've been married a good 20, 30 years too. Yeah, they've been married about 30 years. They don't handle their money the way where they were taught to handle it, the traditional way of maybe putting all your money in a pot. She said, my husband and I, we don't do that. And this is, we do something different or whatever. And I don't remember all the things she said, but you have to know that God has made 8 billion people and not a single person has the same fingerprint. And that says something because God is not called for everybody to be a clone. That's why you got to stop listening to people who are always talking about their marriage and what they got and where they're going and how good it is, while you're thinking, well, why don't I have that? And then they start telling you, and this is what's so deep. I heard this person say one time, like, if you looked a certain way, if you were married, your husband must be gay, or he must have not be so endowed in the bedroom. That kind of thing. Like, he can't even believe if you don't look a certain way, you could even be with a real man. And people are listening to this. You gotta, and I know why they're listening, because they're so desperate to be in a marriage because they think that life will be better. My daughter was probably like in the 7th grade, and I used to think like that too. And I remember they had a field trip, and I was there, and I was one of the chaperones, and I was talking to this other lady, and I don't know how we got on relationships. I don't even know how we started talking about relationships. But I made a comment to her about something like, well, when people are married, they'll have more money or something crazy that I said. And she was like, no, I know so many people and they're struggling and they're married. And I don't know why up until that point, he never thought about that, because I just, in my mind, had sort of this kind of assumption that, okay, you get married, well, you will have more. And let me tell you what happens when you get obsessed with hooking up yourself and getting yourself in a relationship. What you fail to do is look around and see who's in a relationship. If a person is having a healthy marriage right now, they are in the minority. The majority of people who are married, they're struggling just like you would if you were a single person. They're going through stuff, they're having to deal with stuff. Now, that young lady, going back to the young lady that inspired this episode, she was not married, but she was living with the guy. So it was like they were having this sort of common law marriage, and she was going through everything. And this happens a lot, and I see it up close and personal. So I want to tell you, number one, stop listening to people who are married. And I know this is radical, because you would think, well, if I want to be married, I need to listen about. Nope, stop. Because guess what? All they're doing, and it's a psychological thing, and they know what they're doing. They're showing you how good their marriage is and all their material stuff. They're materialistic. Same time, they're talking about all the money they make, but yet they still on YouTube all day, every day, because they don't really have to. Because if they do make $1 million, they spend $1 million. And they dangle something in front of you to make you think, if I listen to them, maybe I could get what they have. And even though thousands may listen, they're not getting it. You've already listened and you haven't got anything. Turn it off. Shift your focus not to being in a relationship, but put your focus on being at peace about where God has you now. If God has you as a single woman now, ask God to give you peace, because being single is not a curse. Being single doesn't mean you're going to have less than. Now, here's something that's interesting. This was a maybe about 2 months ago. I was on Facebook. That's the only personal social media I have. And this lady had posted a little video. It was kind of a sad video. And she basically was saying she was in her 40s, and she was sort of lamenting that she had not gotten married. I think she didn't even have kids. She didn't get married and she didn't have kids. And she said, like, in her earlier years, she thought that she would have gotten married and she would have had kids and she longed for a family. She was a Uber driver. So different couples would get in the car, and this one particular guy is what led her to do her little video. He was going to surprise his wife or something. And so she got kind of sad, seeing this guy, going to surprise his wife, and yet she didn't even have any romantic options at all. And the first thing I thought of was, when you see married couples, you don't know what people are going through. You know, when you during the holidays, you see people together, they're laughing, they may seem like they're unified, but that's only during the holidays. And then nobody is going to get on social media and post the problems that they have. What people do post them, but usually what people are trying to do is they're trying to post things that make it look like everything is fine, when a lot of times it is so fake, because it's not real, because people are, and I've seen that where, wait a minute, I know you, I work with you, and you're posting this stuff, and what you're posting is not the reality. So I want you to understand that. And at the same time, I don't want you to be discouraged, but I'm telling you, you will be safe and you will remain sane if you stop trying to pursue love, if you stop trying to get it from outside of yourself. Here's another concept that a lot of people, it's just simple and it's true, but people forget. Love does not come from people. Love comes from God. Love can come through people, but the author and the creator of love is God himself. And I know that, telling you to have, encouraging you to have a relationship with God, a spiritual relationship, it might not seem, until you try this for real, it may not seem like it's going to be fulfilling. Because maybe you think, I got to have a physical person in front of me. But if you are desperate and you're not at peace with yourself, and you haven't fully wrapped yourself around God's love for you, and you're not totally complete, even if you got with a person, you would always still be seeking something that you can only get from God. Another person, even in a healthy relationship, trust and believe, even another person can't do everything for you. They can't. They're human, so they're flawed. They can't give you everything. They can't do every little thing you want. They can't provide everything you need. And see, that's another thing on the flip side. That's what a lot of these men who say they don't take the red pill, they'll say that's what a woman is supposed to do. She's supposed to do this, she's supposed to do that. And then if they are fortunate enough to make it so that their wife doesn't have to work, she still has to work inside the house. She still has to have strangers in her house. If somebody else gonna help her with the stuff, it's a lot of things that go into that. Again, going back to my aunt that's been married for 60 years in a healthy, good marriage, my aunt has worked until she retired. And in fact, because she had a very high position in government, or an organization that's connected to the government, she worked a lot. She still sometimes does conferences, and guess who's beside her? My uncle. And my uncle has worked, and he's a man that was a professional. And so what I'm saying is that there is not a singular formula for how to have a healthy marriage, but that's what you have all these people saying. You got to do it this way. You got to be this way. You got to look that way. And then if you fall out of anything that they say, they will say, this man literally has said things like, well, there's no way that marriage could be good. because the woman doesn't look like his wife. Who's that Cat Williams description that he gave on Shay Shay Club Shay Shay? If you're not acting like that and you're not looking like that, it's basically like, well, there has to be some secret. It has to be a lavender marriage. It just can't be good. Stop listening to them. Stop listening to people, because you can go bonkers. And then you even, like I said before, you can check every box and it's still not good enough. Because until we have a revival among our men, until we have a person that will come and teach people relationship and the right way to use the Bible for how to be in a relationship, you're probably going to be single. And I've been concerned because I think more women are choosing not to be in relationships. But this is what I want to emphasize. It's not about being bitter. And that's what I want to say. Another point. When you make peace about your marital status that God has for you, then you also have to accept that you cannot change anybody. You can't change a man. You can't make a man do what you think he ought to do. And I say, stop criticizing men. And when you can, say, okay, I'm not going to be with a man, and yes, this happened, but you don't have to be bitter. You live with your eyes wide open. When you have a sheet of paper in your nose, you can't see the words, you can't see the letters on that paper because it's on your nose. But if you pull that sheet of paper away from your eyes, you can see the lettering clearly. When you get away from trying to be in a relationship with men, you're able to see things clearer. You're able to understand things better. And you use that understanding to empower you to make better decisions. And so one of the things you got to understand is you don't have to be mad at men because they're not acting in a certain way. They seem like they're rejecting you for whatever the reason, or they're not treating you well. You have to learn how to live and let live. You have to let God deal with other people. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done, but I see sometimes women, it's a way you can talk about men that is constructive, and there's a way that can be destructive and negative. And you don't want to be bitter about what has happened to you, because ultimately, let me just say this, and I went through this myself. Ultimately, if you've had a bad experience in a relationship or relationships, you got to look at yourself, because you chose. It's not about what that person did or didn't do. You got to begin to understand, why did you choose a person to do that? Why did that young lady choose a man with no job, no money, irresponsible, untrustworthy? Why did she choose that? And so you have to begin to look at yourself. I went through that. I went through something I call a midlife awakening. And I tell you, this is something that is thrust upon you. People call it midlife crisis. I call it an awakening, because it's not something you can almost control, but it's sort of where you kind of have this awareness that you have probably less time in front of you than you have had behind you. And you start reflecting on your life, and you can, have reflections and memories about bad things, but ultimately that person could have never done whatever you think is the most horrible thing if you didn't let him, if you didn't make the choice to be with him. And so that's another thing you have to do. You have to stop focusing on what people have done or didn't do, and you have to focus on, why did I let this person do this? Why am I? Some people just keep going. They keep, like I said, it's vicious, because they date somebody for 2 years, they end up sleeping with that person, they break up, and they keep this cycle going over and over and over again after they've gone through scores of different men. But you got to ask yourself, why am I choosing this? And see, I believe this is why you got to make the connection with God. Your sense of self-worth has to be based on how God feels about you, for you to have peace. Because men will tell you you're not worth it. If you don't look a certain way, if you don't act a certain way, they'll just, that's what they're saying. I mean, nobody is trying to hide it anymore. Nobody's trying to be nice about it and diplomatic. They'll basically say, the reason why you're being treated so badly, because you're not worth it. The reason why you don't have a man is because you're not worth it. And so if you internalize that, then it could be very damaging for your mental health. But if you say, my worth is determined by God, and no, men may not think I'm worth whatever, men may not think I'm priceless, but they don't matter because those same men are going to die. And I say that because I say that they're going to die. That means they don't have any power. They're finite. They are not infinite. They're limited in their power. God is all powerful. So you got to understand your worth has to come from God, regardless of what men think. Some men are going to think that's another interesting thing about men, because they are so dependent upon how others see them. They will often choose a woman, sometimes not because they really, really like that woman, but because they know that people will not like her. They may want a fuller figured woman, or they may want a darker skinned woman, or whatever the case may be. I've heard a guy, this is when I just really discovered YouTube. I got to tell you, I'll tell you a little secret. I really discovered YouTube. I really started watching YouTube maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. I think I had a YouTube account, but I just never really watched things on YouTube for whatever the reason. And one day I watched this particular episode. It was about a guy and he was talking about relationships. He was encouraging men to have their girlfriends or whoever they're dating to be around their friends. I thought, that's weird. Why would you use your friends to determine whether or not this woman is best for you? Because are the friends going to be in the relationship with you too? Like, it gets really weird to me, and that doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure he had a reason why he did that. But then what if the friends say, well, she's not pretty, but he liked her? What if the friends say, well, she's not fine enough, or whatever? So that's why you have to understand who you are. And let me tell you what's going to happen when you really find out who you are, you're a child of God, and you fully embrace the love that he has for you, and you understand that you are priceless to him, and no other people may not think that. They may not think that based on your looks. They may not think that based on your size or what you have or what you don't have or how you act. But if you know that you are all that with God, you have a sense of self-worth where you won't let other people mistreat you. And you don't have to be mad at anybody. Like, let's just say that this young lady was beautiful. And let's say that she met that guy, the one that cheated on her and gave her the STD. And she found out that he didn't have a job and he was irresponsible. She could have said, oh, hey, brother, I'm sorry. I don't think we would work out, but God bless you and keep you, and move on. But see, if you're desperate to be in a relationship and you think, because some people have told women, this is what you do. You try to build them up. You're supposed to be a helpmate. You're supposed to empower them. And you're getting, different conflicting advice from different people, but you got to get it from God. What does God want you to do? Does God want you to be with this person? So I want you to understand that. So let's just recap, because I want to end this episode. Is number one, do not internalize the myths that your life is missing something because you're not in a marriage. You're not married. Don't think that you will have less because you're not married. Don't think that you are worth less because you're not married. That's simply not true. If God has called you to be married, that second point, you will be married. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to be worried about it. You don't have to be obsessed about it. But you can truly make peace. God, if you want me to be married, I know you will provide. And I can tell you some beautiful stories where people were not even thinking about it, and then they met somebody, and just wonderful, beautiful stories that I personally know and can share. But that's the first thing you got to do. Number two, you have to understand that there is no set formula for having a happy, healthy, long-lasting marriage. The goal is not to just be married. The goal is, if it is in God's plan for you to be married, but to be happy and healthy, for you to have joy, because the real purpose of marriage is companionship. It is so that you and this person can support each other in fulfilling God's purpose for you and his kingdom. And everybody, it's over 8 billion people, and God was so special that he made every single person different. Even your scent is different. If somebody took a hound dog and they took your clothes, they would pass millions of people trying to just find you. That's how unique you're supposed to be. So the concept that everybody got to do it this way, and it might have worked out for them or somebody who's telling you they by their happy marriage that they think they have, then they may tell you, well, do it like this because this is what works, and they got some good a good game. They got some good rhetoric. Well, I know people and I know that, and everybody knows that too. And so don't do that. Don't internalize these negative tropes. Um, Again, and also this is what I want you to do while you are single. Learn how to wait on as you wait for. I want to say that again. When you go to a restaurant, the waiter or waitress waits on you. They bring you things. They make sure you have the bread, you have the drink, and all that good stuff. You want to be working for God. Like God is the chef, God is the cook, you're the waitress. And you want to be focusing on yourself and making sure you're doing what he's called you to do. And you don't, and if God, and while you're waiting on him, if God, and you can be waiting for God to bless you, if this is a part of the plan, but if it's not, you can make peace and you can understand you're not missing out on anything, and your life is not going to have less than, and your life is so fulfilling when you are fulfilling the purpose of God. So that's the worst thing I want you to understand. Don't let somebody else's desires become your desires, because here's the thing, and I remember this so clearly. I used to subscribe to Essence, and I haven't subscribed in years, but I talk about different things that I learned from Essence. And at one point, Essence was doing articles on women who they did a couple articles like this where women had just gotten married. They got married, and then guess what? About 5 months later, they were contemplating divorce because when they got married, it wasn't what they thought it would be. They felt more restricted. You have to make an adjustment to your life. Then a lot of people do expect you for your entire life as a woman to cater around the man. And I'm not saying all men are like that, but for a lot of men are. So these women were trying to get divorced, and then they had to try to, bring people in and say, hey, look, don't get divorced. It's something you got to kind of work through. They used to have that 7-year thing. Like if you can get through 7 years, then y'all can be together forever. But the point I'm trying to make is you may think you want to get married and you really don't. Because when you really do get into marriage, it's not what you thought it was going to be. Marriage is not for everybody. You have to be called. And that's what you want to do. You want to ask God, am I called? And if I am called, God, prepare me, heal my mind, heal my body. Make sure that I have the right mindset if it is for you. But if it's not for you, do not feel like you're missing out on anything. This is myth that there's single women and they're old and they're bitter and they're with the cats. And let me tell you something. There are women who are single and they don't have cats, they don't have dogs, and they are happy. They are filled with absolute pure joy. They're not thinking about a man because they understand if that was a part of their purpose, if that was a part of something that God wanted them to have, they would have it. God will never neglect you from your needs. If it's something you need, you have wants and you have needs, but God will never ever neglect you. And he's the only one that can determine your marital status. Because you can't make a man love you, but God can put something in a man's heart for you if it is meant to be. So, number one action, stop listening to these people. No, for 3 months, just don't listen to anything about relationships, because if you listen to it, guess what you're going to do? You're going to think about relationships. Number two, and this really should have been number one, you have to nurture your spiritual life. And this is done first. Now, there are many things you can do. There's bad religion, there's good religion. But good religion, the way that you really get a sense of intimacy and closeness to God is through communication. In the spiritual world, we call that prayer. This is the most important step To strengthen your relationship with God is to always pray and talk to God. The good news, He's available 24/7, 7 days a week. It doesn't matter what you have on. It doesn't matter the time. You don't have to schedule an appointment. You can talk to Him anywhere, and you can talk to Him at all times. I recently had a guest on, my former coworker, beautiful person. She had breast cancer, and she talked about the last round. They call it, I think she said it's called the demon round or something, of chemo, and how it just sapped all of her energy and her strength, and she was in a lot of pain. And she talked about being in bed. She couldn't do anything but be in bed. And she'd lay on one side, and she would, until she couldn't handle that side anymore, and she'd lay on the other side. But what she said was that entire time she was in her room, she was talking to God. She was talking to Him as if He were right there in a chair. That's how real God is. God is not in a distant place. He's right with you every single day. And that's what you have to do. You have to talk to Him. You have to get silent and listen to Him. You have to turn off everything, the phone, the television, your computers, whatever. Got to talk to God, because He is the one who has your life in His hands. He's the one that gives us breath. He's the one that in the end will determine what you have and don't have. And don't let anybody fool you. You can't make yourself get a man. You can't make a man like you or marry. You can't do that. And it doesn't matter what you do. And that's what this is how these so-called relationship coaches, life coaches make their money. They're telling you something, even though it's not happening in your life. They're telling you, you got to do this, you can't do that, this ain't gonna work. And then a lot of times they're telling you why everything is not working. And then you do all the things they tell you to do, and then you're still married. So many women are going through that. If 1% of the people that listen to them get married, I would be shocked. Now they feel like they got to create something and try to make it happen, because it's not happening. But if you stop listening to them for 3 months, and you shift your focus from being in a relationship with a man to being in a relationship with God, you will feel like an entirely different person. See, desperation leads people to death and to destruction and disease, because you're constantly trying to make it happen. Stop trying to make it happen. And I'm telling you what I know. There is a peace you will experience that surpasses all understanding. There are ideals that people have presented, and then there is realism. And here is the brutal reality. You're single because, again, we need a revival among our men. I saw something, somebody was another content creator. Well, no, same content creator that showed the video of the girl crying. He was saying how men are now, they're going overseas. They're going to Brazil. They're going to Africa, because what they want, many of them don't really want to be in committed relationships in the first place, but they do want to have certain liaisons. And so they can't get it here, so they're going over there. And that's just a reality. Unfortunately, sometimes the truth is negative and sometimes it hurts. But what I'm telling you, regardless of your status, your marital status, you can have peace and you can have joy. And you don't have to get it from a thing. You don't have to get it from another person. God is really enough. And I'm asking you to give this a try. Let's go back to what I said when I first started, and this quote that I heard over 30 years ago. If you do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. If you're a woman, young, middle-aged, older, and you are not in a relationship and you want it to be in one, think about what you've done in the past. Think about maybe what you're doing now, and ask yourself, has it worked? Have you gotten the results you wanted? And at the end, and think about everything you're doing, what you're listening to, who you're listening to, what you're doing, where you're going. And ask yourself this question: why am I still doing the same thing over and over again when it's not working? I want you to stop. And again, I want to emphasize, you're not less than because of your marital status. Don't internalize these negative tropes that something must be wrong with you, or you're less than, or you're missing out on something because you're not married. God determines a person's marital status. Not that people may think, well, I'm doing it because I'm so good. Men will say this, well, I'm so wonderful. My wife is with me. And they don't even know this one particular person. Their wife, if she could leave tomorrow, she would, but she would rather stay and have her bills paid and do that and do whatever she has to do. And that's what, it's a joke. It's a trick. Don't internalize that. Don't let somebody else's vision for their life become your own. Remember, God has made all of us unique. No one has the same fingerprint. No one has the same body print. And being single doesn't mean you have to be bitter with men. You have to learn how to live and let live. If men decide they don't want to be with you, they can't handle you, you're not enough for them, you know what? You say, God, thank you. I don't understand it, but God, I thank you. Don't internalize negativity, because that's why so many women will become bitter, and sometimes they will become depressed, and sometimes they will feel bad. And you see other people happy, that's one part of their marriage. That's not everything. And so look at the guy, and I'm going to do an episode on this. LeVar Ball, his wife left him after 30 years of marriage. This lady had a stroke. She had a stroke, and she left after the stroke. And who knows, did the marriage cause her to have that stroke? Because there's another thing going on right now. There's something called great divorces, where people stayed together. This happens a lot. And they stayed together for the kids. They let the kids grow up. They let certain things happen. And they could never take that marriage anyway. They were never happy. But they went along to get along. They did what they had to do to try to keep everything together. You can avoid all that. You can have peace right now. You can have joy right now. If God will want you to be with a man and be married, it'll happen. If he doesn't, it won't happen, and it's okay. And that's what I'm trying to say, because I see these videos with young women crying, telling their stories, these horrific stories. I see the news stories where women are being killed. I live in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and every day, you hear a story about a woman being killed in a domestic violence situation. You have to make peace. And sometimes if you're so fixated on being in a relationship with a man, you can't enjoy the relationship with God, and how you won't ever discover how complete you will feel, how full you will feel, how at peace you will feel. Give it a try for 3 months. Stop listening. I'm going to say this again, to any relationship coaches, stop listening to it. If they're married, they got something you don't have. I know they may say, well, listen to me, because that's what they use. They say, listen to me because I'm married. No, you got to stop listening to them, because their marriage was something that God blessed them with. And it's not about what they've done or haven't done. They are experiencing the grace of God. And in one particular case, I guarantee that lady, she doesn't even want to really be with that man. She doesn't really want to live the life that she's living with that man, being on YouTube all day and all night. That's another story for another day. Nevertheless, remember, your experiences can make you better. You've had them. You got to take full ownership of what has happened to you. If you've had bad experience, I know that's painful. You got to ask yourself, why did I choose who I chose? And usually when you have a high sense of self-worth, regardless of what other people think, because they will tell you, now you're not worth anything, you're not worth it. They'll tell you that. And let them keep saying what they say, and they will let God deal with them, and you just deal with yourself. But you need to know what God wants for you. So my time is out, y'all. My seconds are out. Peace and abundant blessings. I don't want to go over an hour. I may do a part 2. Take care. I hope this episode blessed you.